right, guys, back with you here on Friday the 13th, kind of middle of the day, and so I made the poll of just open to any asset. I did a little quickie update over on Twitter for Bitcoin. For those of you looking for a Bitcoin Friday update, I didn't think it warranted a full-blown analysis, so I just did a 2-minute update there. So that's over on the Twitter feed for those of you interested. And then per the polling, just throwing it open to any asset. Interestingly, a couple of equities won out the day here. Now this is Navistar. This is a 3-day chart. Now, right, so I'd like to remind you guys, right, particularly with equities, you always want to start on the daily, or if you need to, go out further. And here, here I'm on a daily. I'm going back to 96 here, but it is kind of important to get some perspective on where we've been and where we are. So I just encourage you to don't forget to do that. So as we look here now, focusing, I mean, obviously there's a lot of history here. Looking at our current history, there's a couple of things of note here. Let me go, pardon me, I'll go, whoops, let's go back to a daily here. I might have to scrunch here to show you this. Will that do it? Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, so there are certain characteristics that you'll find in assets, and this one seems to have its own, and that is that we can see here from my pivot here, we can see the makings of a potential algo trade. So we've got, if I'm right on that, swing high, we get, so here's the move down. Well, first we get this one, right, which doesn't quite make the 50. So this one is interesting. So it seems to be responding at the 38, right? I can't tell you exactly why, although possibly, yeah, there it is. So there's golden zone, we get target here. But if I come back here, this is interesting. So it's 38, but they don't quite make the 50, but look at the reaction here. And then here, same kind of thing. We come over here. From this pivot, we're not making the 38, but look, we're to the tick here. So you just start kind of experimenting and say, could they be using a secondary pivot? But this is so precise. My guess is that they're for whatever reason here, they're using the 38. So we get some algo participation. And how do we know, right? It's never what's happening here. It's always what happens at the target, right? So clearly that was algo driven. So perhaps something characteristic of this equity is that it prefers that they're responsive at the 38. Just something, mental note to put in the back of your mind. Now, as we get over here to the right edge of the market here, again, still on the daily, this is, this is one of those cases where, the Elliott Wave is so obvious here. That's one to put in front of your Elliott Wave skeptics and say, really? Really? You sure? Yeah. Anyway, as I often will say, not to be arrogant or cocky about it, it's just there are times when it's so bloody obvious, right? That's when Elliott is most helpful. How do you not see 5 waves there? The subdivision, it's just a perfect Elliott Wave impulse. Right? Now, some people can say, well, it doesn't help me. So I can respect that, right? If you don't, but to say, Elliott Wave is bullshit, right? That's an interesting stance to take. Now, coming down here, so we can look at this and say, okay, when you say, all right, fuck the Elliott, you don't like the Elliott? Okay, well, let's talk about the algorithms. Okay, let's go swing high, swing low. All right, get right on that. What do we get here? Golden zone. Right? I can't even, it's just unbelievable to think how many, I can't even put a number. I bet I've shown it. Got to be over 3,000 times. Got to be. So here we go, right? So it's corrective right to the golden zone. So what does that mean we have here? It feels like I say the same thing every day, right? It's the same thing over and over and over, guys, right? That's the point, right? It kind of really is the point to show you guys. If you did nothing else, literally forgot the Elliott Wave, forgot anything, no indicators, no nothing. You just took dominant swings and you did only one thing. You specialized in golden corner pockets. That's all you did. It's the only signal you took, the only thing you traded. I'm telling you guys, you could have a very, very long-term successful career in the markets because these just happen with such regularity. Okay, so how do we trade this, right? We know. Right, again, I always do this. I always say the same thing here because I deliberately, as long as this pivot holds, as in we don't do this. We don't go up here and then come down, right? So as long as this pivot holds, this is 80%. This is the best probability you get in trading, period. There is no better technical pattern anywhere. I defy you to put one in front of me. There is nothing else with that kind of statistical advantage here. Doesn't mean that every time you take the trade, you're going to have a winner. It's obviously. Nothing's 100%, right? In fact, I'm making a point of saying it's 80%. But it's not 80% that we get to the algo target. It's 80% we get to the median line. We can hit it here, 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 here. It's just 80% that we get there. Kind of looks to me like, oh, lo and behold, what do we get there? All right, so do you see what we've got here? Yeah, let's get the median line off here. Let's get you tightened down again. All right, so this is the kind of thing that the markets do. Again, it doesn't matter what asset we're talking about. They all move exactly the same way. And until you embrace that and lean into it, you're going to struggle. I'm just telling you, you got to just accept it. So what do we have here? All right, so from the reaction here, we go right to the golden zone here. Then we come down to this golden zone. Now, right, so we're stuck in the box, right? So this is just an algo box, right? I've said that again thousands of times, right? All that's happening here is we're just two algorithms are fighting it out. Okay, so this algorithm here that sold it here is looking for this. Well, come here, fucking trading view sometimes. Looking for this target, right? Well, what does it run into on the way? Right, this algorithm. Right? This guy takes the day. So really, they're just passing off who's in control. Sellers in control. Now, buyers step in here, right? This is defense. Now these guys are in control. They're in control right up, right? So they come up to the 50. Now these guys will start playing defense, right? That's the game they play. Now, for this to break, we got to get through the other side of this sell side algo has to get broken, or this comes back down and the buy side gets broken. Right now, that's how you know what you've got here. Do I have, well, so in the larger context, if we can put an Elliott count on this, all right, let's go back to maybe Elliott isn't just complete hogwash. Okay, so let's go with that. All right. So there's a candidate for a 1. There's a candidate for a 2. Now, the subdivision, you go, well, what the hell? It's not a simple ABC. Yeah, I get you, right? So that would have been very easy to have been looking at this asset thinking, oh, I got an ABC here. Looks like we're going off. There's the 1 down for the 2. We're off for the 3, right? But the market doesn't give it to you. But that doesn't mean you can't, oh, well, I can't trade this. Get this guy off of here. This new update they did, I can't say I love. All right, makes everything you touch very sensitive. Anyway, I digress. All right, so we got a 3-wave structure that keeps going. So what do we have? A, B, C into a W, right? We get note, right? So remember, an X wave, ideally, the perfect X wave. Now ideally you'd have a little better subdivision here, but you're looking for it to go to the 618. It goes right to the 65 to the tick. Remember, it's not the 618, it's in the golden zone, and that's where you get the response. All right, so W, perfect location for my X. Now I get another A, B, C here. Now, are we done? Well, we can't say for sure because we have the potential for another X wave here. Right, so here, I got to take this off just to show this to you. Okay, so if we come from this X, right, down to this. Now, we've broken here. So from this side, right, we've got a slight break here. Wouldn't invalidate the potential that this would be another X before we go down for the Z. But right now, you'd have to give a little bit of an advantage. Now, we haven't broken the channel, right? So I'm just connecting the pivots here, right? I'm connecting the top pivot with the X, and what we run into? Right into it. So we break the golden zone, but hit the trend line. So now for this, perhaps there needs to be a little retrace, and they reload to go again. So, you got to be conscious of the potential here that this could be the next X, and then you'd be going A, B, C down to finish. But because this is a prime zone for a wave 2, I plant the 2 here until I'm forced out of it. Now, looking at this is going to need to get busy here. Right? We're going to need a kick out of here to maintain the 5-wave structure. Already, it's a little bit, you got some problems there. So let's look at here. Let me get this off of this. All right. So if this is done down here, okay. If the Y is in and we've got the 2 at our golden zone, we're all set to go. Well, this doesn't look great to be what you'd want to launch. right? I mean, of course, you could have a diagonal, but of course, you'd prefer to get an impulse, right, just to make it easier. But this now, so what do we got here, right? Right now, it sure looks like an ABC, doesn't it, right? Because if this were the 1, 2, well, I'm going to show you here. We're just maybe within a tick of being long enough. But we've already overlapped these, so it would maybe you'd have to trade this as an ABC of a 1 of a larger diagonal, but that's getting way ahead of yourself, right? You don't even have the 5. You don't even have a 5. You just got an ABC. So for the time being, I'm inclined to just go ABC, right? Which kind of leads you into the WXYXZ. So now let's measure this. Could this perhaps, possibly be the start of something impulsive? Well, it couldn't be impulsive, right? So right now, we'd already have overlapped the 1. We have yet to make the 100 here. Length of my low here, if I've got this right, just double check the pivots, right? So length of the A projected from the B, we don't make the 100. Now that's a sign of weakness, right? We trade this all day long in the day trading room, right? Whenever we see that, that's a tell. Now keep in mind, now this could go up here and get it, but right now, if we stay weak and we start to come down, this is your tell. We don't make the 100% here, right? That's a sign of weakness, which once again has me leaning into, there's your second X. If this starts to break down, despite the fact that we've broken from the X, we haven't broken from the higher pivot. All right, so here's the higher pivot. Well, let's just so you can see it. Let's put the whole thing together. Really, you'd want it. This is your secondary pivot. You'd want to go to the dominant. So from the dominant, what have we done? Just the 50, right? And so could the 50 be what we're running into? Before, keeping us from reaching the 100? Well, that would make sense, right? You got plenty of structure here, big volume node here. Here's the low volume divot, which you can kind of see is tied to all of this, right? We don't have market acceptance here. Just look, right? It's support, resistance, resistance, resistance. Right, so clearly that's a level in the market that is getting responsiveness, as in we don't have market acceptance there. So once again, we come right up to the edge of it at the 50 from the dominant to dominant, and we got a little ABC. Doesn't make me terribly bullish. Now take note here, we do have earnings on the 16th, right? So is that Monday? It was Monday or Tuesday. We've got earnings coming up. Yeah, that's Monday. So I don't know that I'd be getting overly aggressive here. If it's Friday before earnings on Monday, I'd be a little cautious about that. I'd want to see how the market interprets the number. But right now, boy, that sure doesn't look. I mean, your best case for a diagonal would be that this ends up being the 1. You get an ABC into a 2, an ABC into 3. You get some larger diagonal happening, but right now that's not looking great for bulls. It's actually looking better for bears, right? So I'm looking over here. So note what we got here. So as we come up and we get into the overbought zone here on the RSI, that's where we run into the 50 from the dominant, and then a little weakness starts coming in. Now, we are still above the Vegas wave, but if this starts to break down and we start to head, well, if that's the X, we're looking for an ABC to finish it. What did I do there? All right, let's get that off. All right, so if that starts to come down, we know what we're looking for, and we've got an algo target, right? Do you see that? All right, so from the pivot high. All right, now, this is potentially going to change the count, as in the 2 could be moving over here. Right, so this would still be a candidate for a 2, right? So it'd still be an internal retracement. We know 2s will often go to the 786. So if this is going to come down and we're going to go A, B, C like that, here, let me just finish that there. All right, so then the 2 would go over here. But do you see, this is the point I was trying to make. All right, we fail to make the 100 of the ABC. If this starts to come down, well, look, there's an algo that sold it here, right, at that 50 with that as the target. You see it? From swing high to swing low, we just came right to the 50 into the ABC. Right, I know, right? So you got to check all of these, right? That's it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? But you got to check them, right? Because if you don't, I guarantee the one you don't check is the one that'll pivot on. So there you go. There's your 50. There's the target. That would still keep this as the 2. So if you get a negative reaction off of the earnings, you'd be kind of anticipating this is where we're heading. So we're sitting at 30. Well, fuck, that would be, you'd be cutting it in half if we get down here. We're sitting at 32, and that's a target of 14. So that's going to maybe a big miss, which may be a real surprise to the market. That's what it's going to take to drive it down there. So remember, these are not inevitabilities. But technically, as a trader, here's what I don't want to do. Buy the Friday before earnings sitting at that level. I don't know that I'd sell either. I'd kind of want to wait and see rather than just roll the dice and hope for the best right now. So of course you could do a straddle. There's some things you could do with options, but I just go, well, why, right? Well, let the market react and see how they interpret the numbers, and then that's going to give you some sense of where the next probability zone is. What's next likely to happen? If it's negative, we're looking for the ABC. If it's positive, then somehow we got to look at this as maybe a 1-2-1-2, and it remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see what that looks like. But that's what I see there, right? Right now, clearly the trend is down. We're hitting all these technical levels. We know it's full of algos, right? There's algo. The algo is in here. Well, it's in every asset. So we know this right now, path of least resistance would be down, barring an upside surprise in the earnings, right? And then we'll be back here revisiting. But ahead of the earnings, boy, I wouldn't do it. All right, guys, there you go. I'll be back with